Let's look at the roots of human conflict. If you go back thousands of years, there is a connection that we have, millions of years, with other primates. We're 98% identical to chimpanzees and gorillas. And it's been found that chimpanzees and other monkeys do organize into troops that fight each other based on territory, based on differences, based on otherness, even if they look a little different. What are the roots of racism? What are the roots of homophobia? What's the roots of ethnic conflict? Why is this? This is the real original sin of Homo sapiens, of humans. Why do we view anything that is other than us as a threat? Well, there is some biological evolutionary specialists have said, well, this was done because there was an evolutionary advantage to groups that were forming socially to be able to dominate a territory, what have you, and another one would be a threat, so they'd get into fights and war them off, and it's very territorial. But now that we're in a civilization with thermonuclear weapons and anti-gravity and electromagnetic weapons and scalar weapons and all this, we have to have a spiritual awakening, in my opinion, where we realize that we can transcend all these isms. And I want to add another ism, alienism. Alienism, as I'm going to define it tonight, is the proclivity to view anything that is non-human, but an intelligent life form, as a potential threat. And the threat is directly proportional to how different they either appear or behave from us. This is rooted in thousands of years of human experience, where one tribe would attack and rape another, one ethnicity, one religion. So whether it's homophobia, Islamophobia, religious, ethnic, racist tendencies, these have a root that go back thousands of years in human experience. And they have found that when you develop a behavior like that, epigenetically, it is passed on within a generation or two, not thousands of years. But it means, this is the good news, you can reverse it in a generation or two. We can reverse racism. We can reverse alienism. We can reverse all of these things that have divided us into warring factions. And guess what? We have to. It is a requirement of our survival. We can no longer live as a species that views anything that we don't understand or is different from us as a priori immediately a threat and get into a fight with them. Whether it is another race, another gender, another sexual orientation, another ethnicity, or another species from another planet. Because that only ends in destruction. Now, when we were just clubbing each over the head with, clubs and spears and stuff, or muskets even, it was one thing to behave this way. It was deleterious and appalling and savage. To do it with thermonuclear weapons and these other classified weapons, and then to start bamming around out in space with this consciousness of alienism and division, is fraught and very risky. So I would say that, we shall overcome this. We must overcome it. It is in our collective experience as humans, but we can also overcome it through the force of our intellect, through spiritual development, and through the realization that within the field of conscious intelligence, there's a singularity of mind, and that all life in the universe and all intelligent life is awake through that same spirit. Doesn't matter who they are, where they are. And if we view ourselves and these other civilizations with the understanding of what the conscious mind is as an omnipresent field that is non-local, that there is a singularity of consciousness in mind. As Erwin Schrödinger said, the total number of minds in the universe is one. This is the father of modern quantum physics. And we begin to experience that in our meditation, our prayers, and our spiritual consideration. And this is why I think the crisis we're in, as complex as all this is, I've tried to go through a quick trip in 2 hours. The solution is, well, not simplistic, simple. It is spiritual. It's a spiritual development. Not necessarily religious. I mean, I sort of make a distinction. Sometimes there's an inverse relationship between religiosity and spirituality. That's GREER's theorem. But not to say that not all religious people are not spiritual, but I'm just saying that if you're a fanatic religiously, you tend to not be very spiritual. And it becomes divisive. I mean, how many wars are we fighting over religious differences, which when you boil it down is ridiculous. So I think that we have to go deeper than that. But if we're now having to deal with interstellar civilizations that are waiting for us to join the interstellar club and the interstellar society, which is what's been happening for many decades, we're going to have to find a solution to this thinking, this paradigm of division, of racism and alienism, that the intelligence community, the bad actors here, not the good guys, but the bad actors have been exploiting because they know there is a history of people hating and fearing and fighting anyone that is different from them. Whether it's a different sexual orientation and bashing gay people, or a different race with slavery, or a different gender and the suppression of women, or a different religion, on and on and on. And they know that they can exploit that. And they have been exploiting it. And we have to stand up and wake up and say, no more. We won't be fooled again. It is time for us to say, we're going to start living differently. We're going to have a civilization that is peaceful, that has free zero-point energy, that is just, and that is living in complete peace with itself and with others. And we are not going to go into space with weapon systems. We are not going to go into space looking for another alienism, another group to fight. And that if someone tries to stage an event, we're all going to call it out as the hoax that it is, and not go along with that, what I'm calling scripted Armageddon. They would love to see a shutdown of our civilization and the extermination of about 5 billion people through a conflict that they will stage. And they will manufacture Armageddon. And that's the big, deep plan that has been in place since the 50s. Those people in the intelligence community who know of this, I can't even put in words the extent to which they are devastated when they learn of it. Because they know how these folks are utilizing religiosity, racism, alienism, division to keep the fire burning. But the big one is going to be the launch of a hoaxed attack on the planet that would look 100% like an extraterrestrial event, and it is not. Now, when you also consider, anyone see Michael Jackson a couple years ago after he died in that holographic dance? Cool, huh? That's a declassified technology. You want to guess what's in the classified systems? You want to guess? 1,000 times better than that Michael Jackson on the stage. That looked 100% like him actually dancing. So let's begin to expose the fraud. Let's begin to expose this, not for the sake of rabble-rousing, but to awaken people to the danger. And then let's say, what are we going to do next? Because if look, you cannot, it's axiomatic, you cannot prove a negative, right? You already know that you can't prove a negative. However, if there were civilizations out there that were a threat to Earth and humanity, I think we'd know it by now. Secondly, if they are out there and they're operating sub rosa in a nefarious way, what's the solution to that? Weapon systems? When you're dealing with civilizations that are trans-dimensional interstellar, where they have a weapon system that they could hit a planet with a energy field and turn it into a pink dust floating through space and destroy that entire sphere? That capability exists. No, that's not the answer. And Martin Luther King had it right, and Christ had it right, and Gandhi had it right. Those approaches are not the correct approach. So even if there was such an existential threat, it cannot be managed by warmongers and militarists and people with these other agendas. We need to put together what I called for years ago a council on interplanetary relations that is devoted to peace and space, to the wise elders and youngsters of the planet, to work on this issue and deal with it openly. And this is something that is of the greatest import and urgency of anything in our lives. Because even if we bring out free energy and anti-gravity, but we live on this planet with the consciousness of division and hatred and warfare, that too will be weaponized, and it'll still destroy the planet. So that in and of itself isn't a solution. So this spiritual understanding of the essential oneness of life and the need for not just world peace, but universal peace. And that we are the generation, those of us living on Earth at this time, between the mid-20th century and the mid-21st century. I always joke that those of us between puberty and senility. Unfortunately, I'm getting closer to the latter. I know I have 8 grandchildren. Scary, me being a grandfather. 4 daughters and 8 grandchildren. So 8 grandchildren, beautiful, beautiful beings. That we owe it to our children and to the generations coming behind us, after us. Because the way I understand this is that we're closing out one era in the human experience, several 100,000 years in development. We're opening another era that's about 500,000 years in length, a cycle, universal cycle. And that cycle, the hallmark of it is universal peace. It'll be a day not followed by night, is how it is said. That there'll be a period, we'll enter into peace on this planet and peace in space, but we will not slide back into the darkness of war, which has happened in the last cycle. There were periods of peace on Earth, like the Shambhala Kingdom and Enlightenment, but it always slid back into darkness. This next cycle is different. But how do you start that cycle? Is it not going to be some Ouija board in the sky, or someone's going to come down? And it's not going to be ETs landing on the White House lawn. It's us, the children of Earth, understanding this and creating that reality. It's time. It's time for us to do that. Thank you very much. Let's take about a 15-minute break. And
you want to know what I think?